So there's one thing I've been kind of noticing in all the hubbub with DC fandom and all the crazy stuff kind of coming out with DC films moving forward is I don't see a whole lot of love for Superman. And I mean, guys, I mean, if you've watched this channel at all, you know I'm all about Batman and love the character, and he's one of my favorites, has been since I was 2 or 3 years old. But Superman is another character that I've loved since I was a little kid as well, and I just don't see where we're not giving Superman all the love we can give him. I mean, he's a great character, and I know that there's a lot of people that think that his story and, his world really isn't very relevant right now and hasn't been for a while. But I really think that, we have gotten relevant Superman stories here recently, but also I think that in the right hands, like any character, he can still be very relevant for the time. And I'm, completely excited to see the Snyder Cut of Justice League so we can really see his fully realized version of Kal-El and what he can be after the events of Man of Steel and Batman v Superman. So my hope is that that will maybe rejuvenate the character in some sort of way. And I know that there's been talk of that Henry Cavill is going to be coming back in sort of some cameo roles, some kind of side roles in different films, maybe Black Adam or Shazam, which would be awesome. But I really think that Henry Cavill as Superman needs to be back. There needs to be a sequel, a Man of Steel 2 or whatever you want to call it. He needs to come back in the role. He is absolutely phenomenal in the role. But the character deserves a lot more than he's getting right now, I believe. So, in keeping with that spirit, I decided to kind of look back over the 8 live action Superman films and rank them and kind of give my thoughts on why I ranked them the way I ranked them. So, which films am I considering to be live action Superman films whenever I'm doing this ranking? Basically, anything where he is a main character or where he is a part of an ensemble. So that includes the 5 films included in this collection, which is Superman from 1978, Superman 2, Superman 3, Superman 4: The Quest for Peace, and Superman Returns. I'm also including Man of Steel and Batman v Superman and Justice League, which is, of course, the theatrical version from 2017, or what some people would call the Justice League version. I do know whenever we're kind of by ranking this that probably my best bet is that the Snyder Cut of Justice League may completely throw this ranking into tatters and they just throw it into complete chaos and have to completely redo it, because more than likely I am going to like that one a lot better than the theatrical version, and it may move up several spots. So we may have to revisit this at another point in time. But I want to go ahead and do it now, so we're going to go ahead and rank them. My number 8 choice is Superman 4: The Quest for Peace. Let's just kind of start with what good there is here. Of course, Christopher Reeve is back as, Kal-El, Clark Kent, and Superman. I mean, he is just absolutely phenomenal. He is a legend in the role. And, just any time that you get to see him as Superman is just very welcome. You get Gene Hackman back as Lex Luthor. You get Margot Kidder as Lois Lane. And the plot kind of sounds interesting on the face of it. Basically that, Superman is convincing the world to get rid of nuclear weapons, and he's basically become the nuclear deterrent, so to speak. That part I think is very interesting on the face of it. And then having a character come to face him that, is very much kind of the physical embodiment of, nuclear weapons in Nuclear Man. And he's also kind of got a little bit of a doomsday vibe by kind of being a creation of Lex Luthor and all that. So, it seems interesting on the surface of it. But I mean, the bad is pretty much everything else. It's just it's poorly executed. It's poorly edited. The effects on it are just I mean, honestly, you would think going this far along and getting to the fourth film that, the effects, in roughly 10 years would have improved to the point that it would look better than the first film, but it really doesn't. It looks worse, as a matter of fact. Like I said, they left large chunks of story edited out, and so it really doesn't make some sense in certain places. And it's just poorly executed on every level. Um, Outside of being, from like a major Superman fan that just really wants to be a completist, skip this one. It's just not worth it, and that's kind of sad to say because it is Christopher Reeve's last film as Superman. But unless you just really want to see more of him on the screen, then avoid this one. My number 7 pick is Superman 3. Even though I rank this one ahead of Superman 4, honestly, this one may have been more disappointing than Superman 4. You just kind of you there's just something about Superman 4 that leads you to believe that this is not going to be a very good movie. But Superman 3, I mean, first of all, I love Richard Pryor. He's one of the greatest comedians of all time, and he was a really good actor as well. So you think adding that into a Superman film is going to be awesome, and it just falls flat. He's kind of a computer hacker, and he ends up creating this machine that can take down Superman, and everything kind of comes out of that. And so you think it's going to be really awesome. It's just not. It falls flat. It tries to be too jokey and too funny. And while I understand that Superman typically, especially compared to Batman, is considered a lighter character, it just got too much. Of course, Richard Lester took over for Richard Donner in Superman 2, like in the middle of filming, because he got fired by the producers. And of course, that started that film to being really kind of humorous, and it really ratchets that up in Superman 3. And so it just doesn't work in a lot of cases. I for what it's worth, I do think Annette O'Toole as Lana Lang is a great choice, and she's great in the role. But it just doesn't work. Honestly, if you're going to do a Superman versus computers kind of film, you're better off just bringing in Brainiac. But honestly, at the time, probably they were limited by the effects to truly do the character justice. So maybe they should have just come up with something else. All right, my number 6 pick is Superman Returns. This is a film that I feel like does quite a bit right, but is ultimately starts off too slow to really gain any traction. But we just kind of start with what I really like about the film. I think Brandon Routh as Superman is phenomenal. I think he does a great job of reminding you of Christopher Reeve while also doing his own thing as well. Really love Kevin Spacey as Lex Luthor. I think he's actually probably my favorite Lex Luthor casting, period. He's so sinister and evil and funny and he's diabolical. And I just love him in this role. He's completely unhinged at times. Um, but ultimately, this film it starts too slow. And I think the biggest thing about that, me and my wife were talking about it after we watched this movie here a little while back, and she was almost reminded of Star Trek: The Motion Picture, which if you watch that, you kind of get the same feeling there. It starts off really slow, and there's really slow moving parts to that film, and kind of in trying to create a love letter to Star Trek, because it was the first time it would have been up on the big screen after being, off TV screens for a long time. It's kind of the same thing here. I get the feeling like they were trying to, kind of do a love letter to the Donner verse, I guess you could say, of like Superman 1 and 2. And ultimately, they just were too slow in getting into it. And so by the time it really gets started, you're almost just kind of looking at your watch, kind of ready for the film to end. The other side I'm not a big fan of is they waste, I feel like, Lex Luthor and Kevin Spacey's performance as Lex Luthor on Lex creating kryptonite real estate. It's like the same exact thing that we were kind of talking about in the first film with there being real estate being involved. It's just kind of felt like that, for someone of Kevin Spacey's uh, of his performance in that it was like the stakes just should have been way higher. And so ultimately this film, it really falls flat. But man, it's disappointing in that it had so many things going for it. You really want to like the movie and really want it to work, but ultimately it just falls short. All right, my number five choice is Justice League. Of course, it's the theatrical version, not the Snyder cut. My best bet is after we watch the Snyder cut when it comes out next year, this movie is going to move up a few slots. That's just my inkling there. Um, there's a lot to like here. It just feels like a very hollow version of another story, and that's kind of what it is basically when you kind of go into the whole story behind what happened with Zack Snyder and this film. Really, we just kind of got a Cliff Notes version of the story, and of course, a lot of things were changed and a lot of reshoots happened, and uh, so I am very interested to see how this turns out with the Snyder cut. But I will say, on the whole, this film isn't terrible. It just feels like you're just kind of glossing over a bunch of stuff. And so it is very entertaining. That's why I do have it at number five. But there's definitely, and I do like certain things with Superman in it. I feel like once Superman comes back from being dead, he is a more hopeful character. He is kind of that bright ray of hope that we want him to be. So I do like that in him a lot. And I like the suit. The suit looks really good and it's really bright. And of course, Henry Cavill, he kills it as Superman anytime. He's perfect for the role. And, I really hope one day that we get to see an actual Man of Steel 2 proper sequel. So hopefully that happens one of these days. But, looking at things, I mean, it's kind of where it needs to be. It's kind of in the middle where it deserves to be. All right, my number four pick is Superman 2. And, looking at this film, it has some things that would later go on to really plague Superman 3. Of course, you had Richard Lester taking over for Richard Donner. You kind of halfway through shooting or towards the end of shooting. I can't remember the exact story, but it really, like, some of the more comedic elements really start to come into this. And so some of that doesn't work, but overall, this film is still very, very fun and very watchable. Of course, Christopher Reeve kills it as Superman every time. Terrence Stamp as Zod. Oh my gosh, I mean, he's such a great Zod. Um, and their fight is very good. And Lex Luthor, Gene Hackman's great in this as well. There's some stuff that kind of leaves you scratching your head, like, the cellophane S. It's like, what was that all about? I love the Family Guy joke they made on that here, on an episode a long time ago. That was a really good one. It's like, wow, that minorly inconvenienced me. It's like, okay, you threw a cellophane S at me. Like, what's going on there? But and then of course, like the kiss that made Lois Lane forget everything. It's like, wow, I didn't realize that Superman, actually they had that power, and he's never used it since, I guess. But whatever. But overall, the film works really well. It's a worthy sequel, worthy follow up to the first Superman movie. And there's a lot to love here. All right, my number three choice is Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. Of course, I love this film so much that I did a 10 reasons why I love this film. And, I'll focus more on the Superman end of things here. First of all, Henry Cavill is an amazing Superman, and he's the perfect Superman for this time period, I believe. And, he does a good job of portraying a character who's clearly very confused and is just really honestly disappointed with how things have gone for him being Superman. I think everyone's so stuck on with this film that the big criticism there's and the people that criticize it are really stuck on he's not the hopeful character that we want him to be. And I think the main issue is he's not supposed to be, at least not yet. So, when you look at Man of Steel, he's just beginning his journey as Superman in that film. And he's trying to figure out how he wants to do things. In Batman v Superman, he's still trying to figure that out. But like if Superman actually existed in this world, he is a controversial figure in the world. I mean, you see that, and it's portrayed very well through like the media excerpts throughout the film. Of any time he does something, it's question on what his motives were in doing that. Um, and even if he does something good, it's questioned and analyzed. And some people look at him as this Christ-like figure, and some of them literally look at him as the devil incarnate. And so when you have that going around and everything you do is scrutinized to that level, nobody looks good under that harsh light. And so you find that Clark is very, almost depressed about how this has come to pass. And, he was promised by Jor-El that, they would join you in the sun. And, they're just they're questioning everything. You have a significant portion of the population that fears him. It's just hard for him to see a light at the end of the tunnel. And what I love about at the end of that film is that he does make that turn toward being a more hopeful character, understanding his place in the world. And, of course, he dies sacrificing himself to Doomsday. So you really don't get to see that really play out. But by that point in time, he has figured it out. I will be very interested to see how this plays out, how that whole storyline plays out with Justice League, because in the theatrical version of Justice League, he comes back from the dead and he is that hopeful character. I'm very interested to see how that's going to happen with the Snyder Cut coming out. What did Zack have in place for him as he comes back? Does he become that more hopeful character, or does he take a different route? Of course, with everything with, the nightmare scenario where, if, Lois dies, that he basically becomes a very evil version of Superman because he succumbs to the anti-life equation. We'll see if that kind of goes even darker. I mean, I could see a scenario where it could be darker. I could see a scenario where he goes very hopeful and becomes that beacon of hope that we all know that he can be. So it's all kind of colored by what goes on in Justice League. But I love that at the end of the film, he does make that turn in my eyes. All right, my number 2 film is Man of Steel. And this was a close call, guys. I really struggled with this one. But I think Man of Steel gets more right than any Superman has in a long time. And there's so much to love. Like his beginnings as Superman, when he first emerges in the suit and he's trying to learn how to fly, that's all just perfect. I love, the theme that they came up with for him. It just sounds really good. I love Michael Shannon as Zod. I love the whole beginning on Krypton, and Krypton's destruction, and Jor-El, his role in all this. And I love how they brought Jor-El back in a way where he's almost like can almost be with Kal-El as he kind of goes on his journey. I love the casting. I think Amy Adams is really good as Lois Lane. She's very feisty. Lawrence Fishburne, of course, is Perry White, another stroke of genius. I mean, there's just a whole lot. Jonathan Kent. Of course, Kevin Costner. I almost forgot his name. Kevin Costner, one of the great actors. Why how would I forget his name? As Jonathan Kent. Diane Lane as Martha Kent. I mean, just great casting all around. And so this movie gets a lot right. The fighting, we actually get to see Superman punch people like repeatedly in big fight scenes, and the stakes are really high. And with superpowered beings like that, the stakes are going to be high. The fight scenes are really good. It's a really good film. It brings it on a very epic scale. Zack Snyder treats Clark Kent treats Superman and Kal-El as a more Christ-like figure, which makes perfect sense when you really look at Superman, look at his story, that, in kind of the terms of his story, it does have a lot of kind of Christ, similarities. So lot to love about this film. There's a couple of things I think that kept it from being number 1 on the list altogether. The first one is, I really, as much as I love Kevin Costner as Jonathan Kent, I really feel like he's a bit of a downer and he's a bit of a pessimist. At least that is what comes across to me. Of course, the other side, you can say, well, he was really trying to protect Clark being able to make the decision when he was old enough to feel like he could, feel responsible for that decision. I still believe that he was just really pessimistic to Clark about some of this stuff. Like the whole bit with, after, he saves those kids on the bus. I feel like he handles that completely wrong. And, I can also see in that scene that whenever, Clark at that age asks, ask his dad, well, should I have let them die? And, he kind of looks away almost in disgust and goes, maybe. Like, you can tell he clearly doesn't know what he's doing in that scene. Like most parents, sometimes you just are at a loss for words and you're not sure what the right way to move forward is. So I do appreciate that realism, but there's just a pessimism there that I just don't know if I'm completely on board with. And the way that Jonathan Kent dies, I'm just not sure I agree with that either. Basically, I understand he was trying to protect Clark not having to be forced into coming out to the world. He just wanted to be Clark to make that decision on his own when he was ready. But it's still just really, it just doesn't work quite that well for me. I much prefer in Superman 1978 when he just dies of a heart attack, and that gives Clark the lesson of, and kind of a little bit of humility in saying, no matter what powers I have, there's some people I just can't save. And so I much prefer that. But I think, kind of that whole part of it. And honestly, as much as I love the fight scenes and love the fact that we get to see Superman punch people, it's really ends up, some of those fight scenes end up going just a bit too long. I don't have a problem with the destruction or anything on that end. I think that whenever you have two, basically in this case, four superpowered beings doing battle, destruction is going to happen. End of discussion. And Superman's very inexperienced, so he's not going to be as effective in those situations. So probably more destruction is going to happen than what you would see with a more seasoned Superman. So I have no problem there. It's just sometimes it feels like those fight scenes go on a little long. Especially I know that was a criticism that Michelle had whenever she watched the film. It's just like it just keeps going and going, and you can only have Superman throws Zod through a building, and then Zod throws Superman through a building, and Superman throws Zod through a building, and it just kind of like this going back and forth. So that in some parts it kind of drags as far as that goes. But I mean, as far as it being a great Superman film, I love this film. I will watch this film over and over and over. It is really good, in spite of my misgivings on a couple of spots of it. That to me is just, I can overlook those pretty easily, and it definitely deserves being number two. All right, my number one film, and by this point, you're probably not surprised, is Superman from 1978, starring Christopher Reeve. One thing that it goes in this film's favor is this was, for all intents and purposes, the first modern superhero film. And it proved that, comic book based movies, superhero movies could be not just fodder for little kids, it could be something for a wide audience, adults, kids, men, women, everything all over the place. It could make good money at the box office, and without it, we don't have Batman 1989, and we don't have, and then because of that, we don't have anything that has played out the way it has played out today. It would play out in a far different way if it wasn't for this film. That automatically earns my respect. Also, I think Superman's origin in this film is absolutely amazing and is still note perfect to this day. The way that they play things out on Krypton, I really love that, the beginning of that in Man of Steel as well, but this works really well also. Of course, Clark, getting sent to Kansas, getting adopted by the Kents, his childhood, Jonathan Kent dying of a heart attack, him going and finding the Fortress of Solitude, learning from Jor-El and all the crystals in the fortress, becoming Superman, kind of all the beginnings of him showing up in Metropolis at the same time, the his performance as Clark Kent, uh, Margot Kidder as Lois Lane. She's tough, she's spunky, she's in control of the situation. Everything there works well. The only thing in that film that there's two things in the film that really kind of just like is like the whole like I don't know what you call it, but like there's a dream sequence there where Superman's flying Lois Lane around and she's like there's like some monologue going on in her head like can you read my mind? I'm like what's going on here? Like I have no idea like really what's going on. But and then just kind of the end is kind of off as well, with him being able to turn back time by, flying around really, really fast. I don't know if I buy that very much, but I also understand that everything up to that point has pretty much been spot on, with the exception of that one little tiny sequence. Um, so overall, I mean, there's a couple of things on this film I'm like, man, I don't know. There's a couple of things on Man of Steel I'm like, man, I don't know. But what I'm really going with, I think Man of Steel has the better overall story in that, especially the fight was, Zod and all of that coming back. But I think Superman's origin in the 1978 film and everything that leads up to him becoming Superman is perfect. And the characterization of Clark in that is just perfect, especially in the traditional sense of what Superman is. So in this case, I'm going with characterization over story and picking Superman 1978. And plus, I mean, just its legendary status as being really the first modern comic book film. It's just really hard for me to not put it at the top of the list. All right, so now I turn to you and I ask, what is your favorite Superman film of all time? Please let me know in the comments. Also, let me know what you think of how I rank these films. And, if you agree, disagree, think I'm absolutely nuts, would love to hear it. Also, if you like what we're doing here at Dees Nerds, please subscribe to the channel. We're just two nerds on one channel, talking about the things we love, and would love for you to join us in that discussion. Also, please like this video if you liked it, and also ring the bell icon so you know whenever we have other videos coming out. Also, we're on Facebook and Instagram, so please follow us there. We post content pretty much daily, so and it's always different stuff other than what's going on the YouTube channel. Hey, we're sitting, we're about 10 or so shy of 100 subscribers, and really happy with the subscriber numbers that we've seen. Like I said, my personal goal was to hit 100 by 2 years of this channel, and we've done, close to 90 in almost 6 months. So guys, I really appreciate everyone who's subscribed and, liked the videos, watched the videos, and commented. Just really appreciate all the kind things that I've been hearing, kind of on the feedback. So guys, we just appreciate everything. And, until next time, I'm Chris and we are Dees Nerds, and you guys have a great, safe rest of the day. Bye guys.